Tonight on The ReidOut.
That is incredibly damning. If you're a prosecutor, you really look for evidence of what the former president did personally. And if the DOJ either knows about or is soon to interview those people who were sources for the New York Times, they're going to have a substantial criminal case.
Substantial indeed. The fallout from the bombshell reporting that FBI agents seized more than 300 classified documents from Mar-a-Lago, some containing the most sensitive secrets. Shocking, but not surprising given Trump's history. Also tonight, Ron DeSantis fancies himself a political Tom Cruise. Seriously, you got to see this to believe it. And voters today are choosing the wannabe Top Gun's opponent, with democracy hanging in the balance. That's also true in Texas, where Beto O'Rourke is taking on Greg Abbott for governor. He joins me tonight. Plus, our worst fears are coming true. Republicans' forced birth laws are mandating women and girls to continue with pregnancies that will not even result in the birth of a living child. But the fight for abortion rights is on the march. We begin the ReidOut tonight with what we're learning about just how highly classified the documents were that Donald Trump squirreled away at his Florida mansion resort, and the security threat that they could present. According to a May letter from the National Archives to one of Trump's lawyers, the initial 15 boxes Trump turned over in January contained 700 pages that were marked as, quote, classified national security information, up to the level of top secret and including sensitive, compartmented information and special access program materials. So what does that mean? Well, it suggests that some of the most highly protected material in the U.S. government, material that, if disclosed, could betray sources and methods, was taken by Trump on his way out the door from the White House. And while his current and former lawyers have claimed that Mar-a-Lago is as secure as it gets, a veritable Fort Knox, if you will, there are countless examples refuting that claim and showing the extreme risk that Trump was willing to take with our national security. There is the Chinese businesswoman by the name of Yujing Zhang. Now, that is a name you might not be familiar with. She was actually deported last year to China after serving a prison sentence in southern Florida. That's because back in 2019, she trespassed at Mar-a-Lago, initially making it past Secret Service agents at a security checkpoint. Eventually, she was detained and found to be carrying 4 cell phones, a laptop computer, a hard drive, and a thumb drive that may have included some form of malware. And apparently, back at her hotel room, she had a device that detects hidden cameras and more than $8,000 in cash. Now, she claimed that she just wanted to meet Donald Trump. But as NBC News reported at the time, the full story remains unclear, because prosecutors filed secret evidence under seal, saying it had national security implications. Judge Roy Altman wrote in court papers that releasing the evidence could cause serious damage to the country. But she wasn't the only one able to infiltrate the president's Florida residence. In 2018, a college freshman was able to sneak in, also passing through a Secret Service security screening. He was able to wander around for a while before he was stopped. The 18-year-old told a judge, "I wanted to see how far I could get." Well, apparently pretty far. So if an 18-year-old can walk right in, what do you think might have happened in 2019 when a Russian surveillance ship was spotted off the coast of southern Florida? How difficult would it have been for the Kremlin to make their way in? Well, when it comes to Mar-a-Lago, they wouldn't have had to even set foot on the property to cause a security breach. In 2017, journalists from ProPublica and Gizmodo parked a 17-foot motorboat behind Mar-a-Lago to test its internet security. They wrote, quote, "Within a minute, we spotted 3 weakly encrypted Wi-Fi networks. We could have hacked them in less than 5 minutes, but we refrained," unquote. Trump has shown just how protective he is about classified national security information. There was a time in 2017 when he was getting briefed on the public dining area of Mar-a-Lago about a North Korean missile test alongside Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for all the paying members to see and overhear. Trump aides were using cell phone lights pointed towards sensitive documents to openly discuss how they should respond. And all of this happened before Trump decided to use his resort as a de facto Trump National Archive. As the New York Times reports, in total, more than 300 documents with classified markings have been recovered so far from Mar-a-Lago, according to multiple people briefed on the matter. So just think about what it could have meant. If someone snuck into Mar-a-Lago since Trump left the White House, they could have made their way to any one of the classified documents just sitting around the resort. And according to the Times, it's not like Trump was unaware of what was there. Multiple people briefed on the matter tell the Times the former president personally went through the boxes in late 2021 before handing over the first batch in January. NBC News has also reached out to federal authorities and the Trump team for comment, but has not received a response. Joining me now, Javed Ali, former senior director for counterterrorism at the National Security Council and associate professor at the University of Michigan's Ford School of Public Policy. Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. attorney and professor at the University of Michigan Law School, and Antonio Fins, politics editor at the Palm Beach Post. Thank you all for being here. I do want to go back, and I want to start off, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Fins, just about Mar-a-Lago itself. We know it's a bit of a circus down there. It's got a golf club. It's Donald Trump's little playground for celebrities and for his friends. This is one of the headlines here, and this is from your reporting, and it says, since Trump won the presidency, Mar-a-Lago was always a national security red flag. When you have a location like the White House or the Texas Ranch, 99% of the people that are coming in and out are known, fully vetted individuals, depending on their clearances and access, said Ross Thompson, a longtime hand in private security who's now CEO of Kovac Global in West Palm Beach. Mar-a-Lago is a private club with potentially hundreds of guests and staff present throughout much of a 24-hour day during Palm Beach's social season that runs from October to mid-May. So that makes the vetting challenge harder. Talk about Mar-a-Lago. How open is it? How easy? I mean, it's obviously easy to get on.
Well, we reported that. I mean, you mentioned the 18-year-old that walked through a tunnel that connects the main club to the beach club, and he just walked in because he wanted to see how far he could get. And then we had the two Chinese nationals. But the fact of the matter is that this is a club that it's unlike any other residence used by a previous president, because it is a business. It is where hundreds of people have access to, and not just the members, but their guests, their friends, whoever they might bring in.
Did this change at all, Mr. Fins, once Donald Trump was president of the United States? Did they change their security protocols other than having Secret Service there? From what I recall in the reporting, renting golf carts to drive him around. Other than that, did they change anything about security?
No, I mean, you basically, I went to events there. I mean, I gave them my driver's license. They did a background check to the extent that they did. Then I walked onto the property, and then I was basically, I could do, I had things to do, but I could have meandered around like any other guest there.
Javed Ali, it seems obvious what a threat to national security that could be, but walk us through, just give us, scaring is caring. That's one of the little things we have on the show. How dangerous would it be to have highly secret national security documents in a place like that?
Troy, great to be with you, and great to be with my colleague Barbara, from Michigan. But getting to your question, yeah, this is extremely concerning as someone who's a former intelligence professional like myself and then spending a year in the White House. When you're handling this type of information, whether it's coming to you in written form with documents or even what information you get orally, it has to be, these conversations and the documents have to be contained in what are called special compartmented information facilities, so a SCIF. And you can't discuss or disclose anything outside the four walls of those kind of facilities. So the fact that there were hundreds of pages or dozens of documents to include, very sensitive documents in Mar-a-Lago for quite some period of time and not in a SCIF, as an intelligence professional, that to me is highly alarming.
Can you explain in some way or conceive in your mind how it could be possible that highly secretive documents could have even left the White House without somebody knowing that it happened?
Well, this must have happened in the process of President Trump leaving the White House, and why there wasn't a more thorough examination of documents that were being transferred out of the White House into his possession. That is an open question. We don't have an answer to that, but it shouldn't have happened. I mean, every time a president leaves, there should be a very methodical and deliberate search to make sure that someone even unintentionally doesn't walk away with these kind of documents, and that doesn't appear to have been the case.
Clearly not. Barbara, let's go to what happened with the actual process of the government saying, no, give us this back. So, Christina Bobb, in June, a gentleman named Jay Bratt, who's the chief of the counter-espionage section at the DOJ, went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with two Trump lawyers, Evan Corcoran and Christina Bobb, and retrieve any remaining classified material for subpoena. Mr. Bratt and the agents, according to the reporting from the New York Times, who joined him were given a sheaf of classified material, according to two people familiar with the meeting. Mr. Corcoran then drafted a statement, which Ms. Bobb, who is said to be the custodian of the document, signed. It asserted that, to the best of her knowledge, all classified material was there, had been returned, according to people familiar with the statement. That clearly is not true. Could Christina Bobb, since she was the custodian of these documents, be in some trouble?
Yes, absolutely. Now, it would have to be that she knew that she was making a false statement. It may be that she relied in good faith on misrepresentations made by other lawyers or even Donald Trump himself. But one of the really interesting things about that chronology is it shows the efforts by the Justice Department to get these documents back and by the National Archives. It starts with, requests for voluntary compliance. And they say in January, here you go, 15 boxes, all set. And they realize in, May that that's not all of it. Come on, hand it over. Here's the subpoena this time. We mean it. This is backed by a court order. Turn it over. Empty your pockets. Give us everything. And they give a sheaf of documents. And then it turns out there's 26 more boxes. It takes a search warrant to get it back. And so, I know there have been some accusations that the Justice Department and the FBI have engaged in overreach here by using a search warrant to get these documents back. If anything, I think it's been underreach. They have treated Donald Trump with such kid gloves. And as you've just heard from Javed, these are the nation's crown jewels of secrets that have been kept off-site in a very vulnerable place for months and months and months. I would like to see a Justice Department, frankly, that acted a little more aggressively to safeguard our nation's secrets.